holds all the answers? Or are you eager to embrace concepts such as energy healing? Or do you lie somewhere in the middle, waiting to see hard evidence that alternative approaches bring benefits to more than just those who practice them? Well, I'd like you to meet Michael Doherty from Plexus Healthcare. He's been working on his techniques for a quarter of a century and hopes they will soon become as routine as acupuncture. Michael, good morning.
Good morning indeed, Will.
Is there a science that shows in a definable way, in a tangible way, what it is that you do?
Yeah, there is a science. For many, many years, I suppose for thousands of years, there was the perception that the human being was made up of energy. All the great cultures were very much aware of this. Over the years, through the development of quantum physics, of course, it has shown that if we take any part of the body out and we break that body down, dissect and analyze it, then subatomically we find an energy frequency. And I suppose some of the most eminent scientists, and indeed when we look at the likes of Professor Nordenson from Sweden, for example, who was a pioneer of needle biopsy in the European Journal of Surgery in 1983, he suggested and indeed proved that the body contained this complex electrical system that was totally separate to the nervous system. And he actually stated quite clearly and proved quite clearly that also the body is all the time inheriting the information stored within the energy system. Professor Nordenson was one of the most, eminent that you can get within medicine, but also you have the likes of Valerie Hunt, who Professor of Medicine in UCLA. For 25 years was able to map this, and she was able to show that neuromuscular conditions and learning and behavioral difficulties could be improved if we begin to understand what ultimately controls the physical body, our behavior, our minds, our emotions, and what is the fundamental basis to the body breaking down that we often call illness. So there's a phenomenal amount of scientific research, but unfortunately that hasn't worked its way into the public domain.
Well, you've mentioned a lot of names, and they sound like very credible individuals. What have you concluded is the relationship between this energy and ailments that may develop in everyday life?
Yeah, well, what we've discovered is a number of things. One of the key things, I suppose, is that a lot of shock and stress is one of the fundamental causes, I think, of the breakdown of the energy system. If we look at, for example, over the last year, we've been working with children for the last 5 years, we work with children who have learning and behavioural difficulties like ADD, ADHD, and we're looking at shock, trauma, and stress at birth, whether it should be through C-section, vacuum, forceps suction, or something like that. What we're noticing is that certain amounts of traumatic experiences or stressed experiences are manifesting in the energy system of the body breaking down. And when the energy system of the body breaks down, then what happens is the body's physiology takes that on. So, for example, if a normal person out there on the street is stressed or goes through any type of trauma or stress, well, the one thing it's going to do is it's going to deplete the body of zinc and B6. Now, if you deplete the body of zinc and B6, that's going to affect how your body converts your proteins, your tryptophan foods, into serotonin. So therefore, you have low serotonin, which cannot convert to melatonin. So therefore, you have low mood and can't sleep. So we see an enormous amount of people today going to their doctors who suffer from aches and pains, who suffer from chronic fatigue, who suffer from headaches, who suffer from digestive disorders, having all the clinical analysis carried out, showing nothing wrong. And a lot of this is back to the energy system breaking down. And our approach to it is if we can get the energy system right and begin to educate the patient in as to what is causing that, give them the skills, the knowledge, the understanding that they need to confront that, then the quality of life can change. So it's a question.
And the traditional, conventional approach would be to do what? To offer supplements for the deficiencies you mentioned?
No, what we see, that's the problem, you see, Will. The traditional, and indeed I work with a lot of medical people and train a number of medical people, and in this country as well. The traditional approach, if somebody goes with something like that, if they cannot clinically find something, well, then they have to come up with something. So what I see being prescribed a lot of the time is antidepressants and sleeping pills, or painkillers, or anti-inflammatories, and people are being diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. That's all fine, and certainly our approach to this is very simple, and our policy is if patients have problems or people have problems, they first see their doctor, and to rule out everything. But what we're seeing is people who are coming into our clinics, who have had years of suffering or different types of illnesses, or they have lots of problems that cannot be clinically diagnosed or whatever, and they come to us looking to confront the problem in a different way, without negating the value of medicine, but looking to confront this in a different way. And of course, going back to your initial point, that scientific evidence is now there to prove conclusively that if people were to shift their mindset, learn to deal with their emotions, understand the importance of nutrition, understand the importance of exercise, basic things like that, the results that one can achieve from that can be measurably enormous.
Well, if we take one of the conditions you mentioned, which is depression, and the medical clinical approach would be to prescribe SSRIs or some
Correct.
sort of serotonin reuptake inhibitor or whatever they're called.
That's correct.
And there's a science behind that. What would you do? What would be your approach to addressing why ever there is a serotonin deficiency?
Okay, we'll just go back. I mean, there isn't a science behind that, because according to Professor Irvin Kirsch, he, who is a top professor of psychology, he says that the clinical difference in research between the placebo and the treatment of patients with depression using antidepressants, that clinically is insignificant. So in actual fact, they are the facts that are available.
Well, if I can clarify the statement, though. If you read the packet on whatever product, Prozac or whatever, it'll say that there's serotonin naturally produced in the gut, and this helps to stimulate it and so on. That's what I mean by the science behind it. You can see the methodology of how it works.
But you see, one of the problems is that's all fine. But if you go back to my initial point, saying that if your body is stressed and you're depleted in zinc, and you're depleted of zinc and B6, you can't convert your foods to serotonin. So yes, we synthetically stimulate that. So our approach would be to get the energy right, to get the proper nutrients into the body, to teach the patients in specific techniques that we have developed over the years, to deal with the emotion. So if it's fear, if it's anxiety, if it's worry, if it's because worrying about a house or stress over a job, that's causing huge issues. So it's fine to take short-term the medication, but if you don't deal with what's causing the problem, then that's not going to rectify just taking the medication. So what it also says in the box, the side effects of these medications vary from minor discomfort to very other serious types of problems. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't take medication. Again, I want to reiterate, medicine has a huge role to play in the treatment of symptoms, but what is required is for society to be given a greater understanding as to why it is they have their problems. And I think simple lifestyle changes can make a huge difference. So when we work with the energy system, when we would teach people how to certain emotional transformation techniques, teach them give them the advice and the right nutrition that would help to produce the serotonin, the supplements that they needed to convert that foods into serotonin, then by going back to that medical doctor after a period of time, that would change.
Can we explore the energy aspect of your treatment for a moment? Because skeptics will be more embracing of the nutrition and of confronting whatever emotional dilemmas are there. How do you address the balance of the energy?
Yeah, so around the body there's an energy field. Now this can be photographed and measured, as I said. Nordstrom and Valerie Hunt and all of these eminent medical scientists and quantum physics now teaches us that from the body emanates this field of energy. What we have developed are ways of manipulating this energy field, if you want to say. So we use our hands to scan around the body to feel different sensations. We train a lot of people to do this, and also, of course, that the science of one's intention over another person's physiology is very well established. So our focus is to get the energy flowing using a series of hand techniques. And people often feel different sensations, heat, tingling, coolness, whatever. And anybody who's seen this on television would have seen sometimes people reacting in certain ways. Because the body's magnetic system, or the energy system, is what ultimately controls. So if we can release that through the techniques we've developed, then that's the first step. And sometimes, when you look at it, you say, well, how is it possible for somebody to respond to somebody doing something that doesn't touch the body? Of course it does, because it's measurable, that people feel these sensations and people realize that there's something going on. And if we take a child...
What is happening? Why is the proximity of your hands in conducting this healing making a difference?
We are feeling where the energies are blocked, using our hands. Then we're using a series of techniques to release that or balance that, and people then react to that. It's a non-physical thing. Some people are standing, sitting, or lying. And I often talk about the fact that if a child comes into us that's 6 months old or whatever, and ultimately a child can't understand exactly what's going on, but yet if we use our techniques, parents are telling us, well, now my child is sleeping better, it doesn't have the reflux, it doesn't have the colic symptoms. So the working with the energy it's very difficult from a verbal perspective. You really got to see, and feel it. And those people over the last 24 years, you say, that we've been working with, have always expressed that sense of, they feel the heat, they feel the tingling, they feel coldness, they feel this pulling backwards or forwards. Some people feel nothing, but yet some time after they begin to feel change. But certainly working with the energy, that is the primary area. And if we can work with the energy, which is the primary area where the body becomes ill, people's lives can change for sure.
What causes the blockage? You mentioned stress as one factor earlier. What else?
Emotional stress. I find the biggest problem is emotional stress. Some genetics. I mean, 95% of people are born genetically perfect. Some people have genetic elements associated with it that may cause that. But I find myself that a lot of it is down to emotional stress. You know, that the amount of emotional stress that people go through in their lives. That doesn't mean that people are not going to go through it, but they don't know how to confront it. But if we're on a daily basis waking up to fear and anxiety and worry and panic, and if people, for example, who are diagnosed with serious diseases, who are also, you know, living in fear and worry and panic and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, like people have to learn to confront these problems by working in the way that I'm talking about. That at the very least, if we can keep the energy flowing, that this can help to release the stress out of the body, which can in turn allow the body's own potential to heal itself then.
Is there anything within conventional medicine at the moment that follows these principles?
Within conventional medicine, well, you see, I suppose herein lies the thing about it is that the only thing that medicine has to offer is medication or surgery. Now, it hasn't stayed up with the scientific research that already exists. So the thing is that this is the funny thing, if you want to measure your brain, well, they use an EEG. If they want to measure your heart, they measure it electrically. PET scans, okay, MRI scans, magnetic resonance images. So they're using certain scanning equipment to measure the electrical activity in the body. But what they're not doing then is applying that electrical perception approach to the situation. So this is what has to happen. We've got to bring that in. I mean, when you look at the statistics that are being projected out there by the relevant associations and organizations with regard to disease, when we look at the problems of suicide and the increased admissions to psychiatric hospitals and the increases in cancers and the increases in neuromuscular disorders, the increases in the learning and behavioral and difficulties and within the autistic spectrum, when we look at those increases, okay, and the problems in our hospitals, we have to ask ourselves one question: why? Somebody hasn't got the answer. You know, somebody is not understanding what's going on here. So while medicine has a role to play, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I genuinely believe there is no magic wand, no miracle cure, no magic pill. I think any doctor will agree with that. The truth is, if we can give society the tools and skills and techniques to understand why it is they have their problem, because how many people know exactly what's causing their problem? They don't. So if we can in some way help people to realize what's causing their problem, give them the skills to confront it, then there is no reason why their quality of life can't improve.
But again, for the skeptic, you can prove the efficacy of certain medications and the efficacy of surgery. You can prove the existence of the energy fields. But how do you prove that you're able to manipulate them?
For the last 24 years, the people themselves who we've treated over the years, we've been on the Late Late Show, we've been on Discovery Channel, we've had radio programs, we've had people coming in. The people have been the testimony of our continuation and the development of this work.
Well, we're going to meet one of them in just a moment. The time now on Midlands 103 is approaching 11:15. Video is Michael O'Doherty. His website is justimagine.ie, and we're talking about his plexus healing techniques, and the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. So let's meet Karen Reid from Athlone. Karen, thanks for joining us on Midlands 103 this morning.
Good morning, Will.
Let's go back to when you first met Michael. Can you describe your condition?
Right. Originally, it was back in. I had symptoms. I was diagnosed with Parkinsons. Just for your listeners, I was back in early last year. A friend of mine, Jack, gifted me a session or a series of healings with Michael O'Doherty. Before this, Jack's history of it was 20 years ago. Jack's mother had one cancer after another, and his father had been in an accident on the farm, had gangrene in his foot, and was going to have his leg amputated.
Pretty horrible time.
Yep. And so they heard of this chap, Michael O'Doherty, in Ennis in County Clare, and they went along to see him, and they had a course of 4 treatments, and a few weeks later another course of 4 treatments, and the mother went on she was basically told at the time, put her affairs in order, and she went on and lived a further 15 years, and the father's leg was completely healed. So Jack remembered this, obviously, and we were close friends, and he said he wanted to give me a healing. Now, he gave me the gift last Christmas, but there's a 3-month waiting list to see Mr. O'Doherty here, so I got to see him. I got to see him on the 12th of March. So my first impression when I went in, there was a chap called Dara, which was one of the therapists who was dealing with me, and Michael comes in on day 2 and day 3 of your treatment. I had driven 2 hours to get there. I'm a very slow driver. I had a very old little car at the time. But when I got there, whatever, the sensation you feel, you were asking Mike about what you actually feel. It's very, the treatment is very gentle. You just feel you're very cared for. You feel very cared. You feel, and there's you.
What has been your experience in the clinical setting of conventional medicine up until then?
Well, up until then, I have a fabulous doctor, but I had my symptoms back in 2009 was my foot was going down flat. So people noticed when I was walking, my foot was going down flat. So she, you know what I mean, they sent me for various tests. She sent me on to a doctor for further testing or whatever, and they did all the nerve testings, and I was a mystery to them. At the time, in 2009, for 2 years, I didn't have a tremor. And this was all on my right side. I didn't have a tremor in my arm, but so I was basically a mystery. They didn't know why, I was producing these symptoms. There was no history in my family of any neurological problems or anything like that. So,
and I'm sure watching them being confounded was no comfort to you.
Yes, but but equally, I also believed on some level that I thought I've created this on some level. So equally, I really believe in the power within us to heal what is created within the body as well. So I was intrigued by it as well. I thought, okay, I've created this on some level, either through emotion or, an imbalance of some description. So I was intrigued to find out, about how to cure it. So when I heard about Plexus Bioenergy, I thought, right, that sounds as if it's right up my street.
And were you walking through the door of his clinic with a receptive, open mind, or would you be a doubting Thomas when it comes to these things?
Oh, totally open. Totally open. I would be I'd be a very spiritual person as well, so I was totally open. I just believe I was guided there. That's what I thought. I thought part of my journey in life was I was guided to the place. So you were asking me when I met Michael. So Michael came in on day 2, swaggers into the room, and he's like a ball of energy walking when he walks through the door. So this little, with a big smiley face on him. So he walks through the door, whatever. And what I liked about him instantly is he came straight past me and he just took me by the hand and just squeezed my hand. And he said, good morning. And instantly the warmth of him, and there was a reassurance there straight away. So he came round and he looked at my file, and Dara was still working on me, and he just went over and he sat down and he asked me medically what I'd been through in the last few years. So I explained to him the procedure, and he said to me, I went down the route of, I was with a chiropractor. Then I was told that I was shorter on one side, so I went to an orthotics chap, and Michael just kept saying to me, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work. And what people don't realise about Michael is he's doing this for so long. I mean, I've seen him in action since then, because I've actually gone on to train as a therapist. He can just, when he scans people, when you go in and he scans people or whatever, he can read people instantly. That's for the experience he has of the last 20 years. And he just sat looking at me, and he just kept saying to me, and that didn't work, and that didn't work. So he sat down, and this was within the space of 5 minutes, and he said, Karen, the medical profession are going to tell you that you have Parkinson's. And I looked at him and I said, and what are you going to tell me? And he said, I don't put a name on things. He said, I don't. He said, that's, the medical profession need words. He said, and I said, look, if I go to, and he said to me, have you been to see a neurologist? And I said, no, that's my next port of call in a month's time. And he said,
by the way, were you satisfied to have this ambiguous no-name answer?
When he said it, no, because to continue, he said to me, I don't put a name on things or whatever. And I said to him, well, I feel I'll fall to pieces if they say to me, I have Parkinson's and whatever. And he said to me, it's just a name. And he looked at me and he said, you are strong and you can do this. You can heal this. And I said to him, and he gave me all the list of medications they offered me. And I said to him, I'm not doing medicine. I said, I'm absolutely not going down that road. And he said to me, and you don't have to. You are strong and you can do this. He said, I will give you the tools. But the most empowering thing he said to me was, I will give you the tools, but the journey is yours. The work you need to do on yourself is the main factor that will heal you. And that's what I loved. It gave me back the power. And in that moment I thought, yes, I want to do this. Because I thought, to me, when you give people the power to heal themselves, or you give them back, it's so empowering to know I'm in charge of this. I'm not handing my power over to the medical profession or to people who think, because a lot of people, I feel, I can only speak for me, but I feel a lot of people grab for the medication and things like that out of fear, because the doctors say, this is what we have to offer you, this is all we can do for you.
But can you describe, Karen, your progress since your first meeting with Michael and how you are today?
Right, how I am today was, this condition has been coming since about 2009, and it could have even been before that. What it has given me is great strength, great calmness, great peace of mind. It has given me the tools. It has educated me it is unbelievable how nutrition affects our bodies, and people just aren't aware. They just aren't. We're so green. You know what I mean? To think that, the food we put in our mouth is, I've done so much research in my own condition with the protocol needed for brain recovery alone, because Parkinson's is where you have a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which sends all the messages down. Now, I only have hemi-Parkinson's, which is on my right side. So basically, the dopamine is not sending the messages down. The left side of my brain doesn't send the messages down to the right side of my body. So with that alone, the nutrition, with being on the Plexus course, since I've started, when we had a whole weekend of nutrition or whatever, and fabulous nutritionist Mary Karen, and all the protocol that I'm on now, and the difference, unfortunately, when people see me, they see the tremor, and to me that's like the residue of Parkinson's. It's like the tremor in my arm, it's the foot going down flat, and that's what people see. But the progress I've made in my memory, a friend of mine used to call me Doherty, the goldfish out of the Little Mermaid, because I just couldn't remember anything.
How kind.
No, but it was just playfully. It was playful. It was an endearing, But you can't remember things. And there's so much to Parkinson's, like you can't get out of a chair, you can't sit into a chair, you can't turn over in the bed.
But do you ever wonder, Karen, where you would be, for better or worse, had you not met Michael and instead opted to take the medication and go down the conventional road?
It was never an option for me. Well, I can't speak to you of that, because it would have never been. There's a wisdom within me and a divinity within me that knows that was not my path. It was never a choice for me, so I can't speak about would I have or what if. What I would like to, had I gone down the path of 2 years ago, had I met Michael O'Doherty, I think my symptoms wouldn't be as severe as they are now. But I have to say, I can see the progress in the last 6 months. In me, in my memory, in the changes in my visualization, in my meditation. There's so many components in it. But as Michael said back in March to me, I will give you the tools to help yourself, but the journey is yours, the healing is yours, and that was the most empowering thing for me. But it isn't an option, because I've done so much research myself into, I have to say I have a fabulous neurologist, and it's fabulous. Tim Coonan is his name, and he's down in Galway.
What is his view on your dealings?
Well, he was fabulous. He literally, my sister came along with me the day of my diagnosis, because I knew when Michael said it to me, something within me, it resonated, and I thought, yeah, this is the truth. I'm experiencing Parkinson's, this is it. So when I went to see
your neurologist approves of this approach?
Yeah, so when I sat down with my neurologist or whatever, and my sister at the time said to me, I said, Grace, at what stage will I tell them that I'm not going on medication? She said, just sit and listen to what they have to say, and then say, this is how I feel. So there was a young doctor who actually saw me, whatever, so he was ready to take out the prescription pad and blah, 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 and we'd like to start you on, is it Azilec, is that the one?
Azilec, just Cinemet, or some of that would be the medication.
It's like a preventative. So I said, well, actually, I really don't want to do that. I said, I would like you to give me a year out. So he ran out and got the main guy, Tim Coonan. So he came in with a group of young students, fabulous guy, and he just sat back in the chair and he said to me, so talk to me. So I said, well, this is how I feel. I said, I would be very much into alternative medicine. I said, and I believe I have the power within me to heal this. And I said, how do you feel about that? How would you feel? I said to him, and I said, how would you feel if I came back in a year's time and I was tremor-free? And he said, Karen, if you can be tremor-free, he said, I want you to come and talk to me. You tell me. He said, I'm going to a convention up in Dublin, he said, in the summer for Parkinson's. He said, it's my field, it's my baby. He said, if you can teach me, he said, I'm yours. He said, you teach me. He said, I'm open for it. Totally open. And that to me...
Did he express any reservations about you not taking the medicine?
Yes, he did. I would be telling a lie if I said it differently. He said he was afraid in case if I didn't take the preventative medicine, I might miss the boat, as in my condition getting any worse, because it's not hereditary. Because of my age, I'm only 48. He was afraid I would do, but he was totally respectful of what I want, my journey on what I want to do, and he was totally open to, if I could teach him in any way, he was totally open with that, and that to me is fabulous. That to me is a gift, that you have somebody in the medical profession, at his level, that is totally open to what I feel.
And to maintain respect for your wishes.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to ask this question as a point of principle rather than Karen's individual case, but would your approach, Michael, in general, be an alternative to conventional medicine or a complementary therapy?
Yeah, it's a very valid question, Will. I believe the way forward is an integrated approach. And I work with Sharif Sultan, who's a top cardiovascular specialist and surgeon in Galway Clinic, for example. So, I mean, where I see the necessity of patients going to see medical practitioners, absolutely. And with my own local GPs and so on. So, absolutely, I believe this is working hand in hand. I would never say to people not take their medication. I would never advise people not to take medication. Our policy is simple. If you get better or feel better as a result of what we're doing, go back to your GP, let him or her make the decision. We fully respect that. In the UK, I've trained many of them. I have had Professor Pam Shaw from the Sheffield University, who deals with in the whole neuromuscular area and research in my clinic in London with patients that we've treated there with Parkinson's. So I genuinely believe, well, the way forward is creating an integrated approach where medicine and nutrition and energy work and emotional transformation skills and mindset skills are brought into the public domain in a very real way, and that people are given those tools and techniques, and to waken up out of this illusion that our health comes in a bottle, a pill, or a magic wand. Our health comes from when we are willing to commit ourselves to a program, believe in ourselves, and make the sacrifices. And when you look at the frightening statistic that was just issued recently by the British Cancer Society, saying that within 15 years that 50% of men will have cancer, I mean, that's a frightening statistic. When we know, and the statistics already there show, even medically, that we can eliminate 40% to 50% of bowel cancer by just changing our diet. So we just need to do the simple things right. Create that integrated approach, bring a greater awareness and knowledge, make people responsible for their health. And I think over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, people are going down that road. I mean, we see it largely now. So it is that integrated approach that we believe is the way forward in confronting the serious health issues that are within our environment today.
Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking time to talk to us, and Karen as well. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And I suppose just to confirm for the skeptics, you're not being paid by Michael, you're not related to Michael, you've no benefit to reap from giving
but
grace.
as I said, I went on to, I was so impressed with it, I'm now one of the training to be a therapist in bioenergy, because I see the benefits. And I mean, Michael he's very humble in his gift, in the way he is with people. But there's a folder down there, with the two girls behind the counter, the secretaries, and it is that thick and that huge of paper clippings over the last 20 years. I mean, it was Michael Flatley who put him on the market, but before that, as they said, the folder is phenomenal. And I looked through it, and the amount of stories of people who have been healed through. I mean, Michael will never say he heals anybody. He will always say, I helped, that individual to heal themselves. So he's very humble in his
Thanks, Karen. and we want to bring this to the people too here, Will. We get a lot of people coming down from Tullamore, Mullingar, Portlaoise, and maybe we don't have the answers for everybody, but certainly can really help a lot. And we're training people to do this work, and we have therapists trained in the area. So people go on the website, they'll see all the information that they want to see about what it is we do, and look at the TV clips and the different stuff that we've done. And we've always brought it out into the public, and as I said, we're not saying we've all the answers. We're not replacing medicine. We just have something positive to offer, and I think that people's lives can be changed by the approach we take.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in studio this morning. Michael O'Doherty, the website is justimagine.ie. Karen Reid from Athlone, thank you very much for sharing your story. We are gone way over time, my apologies, but let's break for the 11 o'clock news.